What's up, everyone? James Lynch here doing a quick reaction video to the news that the UFC has implemented a policy that fighters that train or are coached by James Krause are not allowed to participate in the UFC. This according to Hunter Campbell, who relayed this message to the fighters. Ariel Helwani picking this one up. By the way, apologies for this coming out a little bit late, and apologies for me being a little bit sick. I just wanted to do this video because I know people are going to ask me about it, and we want to go through everything that's involved with James Krause. So I'll do my best here to get through that. But you can see there, UFC's Chief Business Officer Hunter Campbell has just informed all fighters that effective immediately, fighters who choose to continue to be coached by James Krause or continue to train at his gym will not be permitted to participate in UFC events. This will remain pending Nevada's investigation into the suspicious Derek Minner fight of November 5th. As of now, Krause's license has been suspended by Nevada. The UFC has also released Derek Minner. There's a full statement. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but this is the story of the year. It has to be. So many things have happened. We'll also want to add in two other things as well that have happened over the last couple of days, which wanted to get some clarity on. So Aaron Bronstetter reporting that the Ontario Alcohol and Gaming Commission has banned UFC fights from being wagered on. So if you live in Ontario right now, if you're using a Canadian sportsbook, you cannot bet on the UFC. The only way you can bet on the UFC if you live in Canada is if you're in a different province than Ontario or Alberta, which has also done their ban as well. I'll mention that in a second, but you'd have to use an offshore book, basically, is what's happening right now. So you can see it there. This all because of this fight. And I'm sure there's other things at play. We'll get into this in a sec, but Aaron Bronstetter reporting today that Alberta has joined them. I live in British Columbia. You can see the Canucks shirt on here. As of right now, at the time I'm recording this, BC has not banned UFC wagers on their sports book. I just checked mine right now. It seems to be okay. But you can see this rolling effect here. And we've also heard that the New Jersey Commission has been investigating, James Krause and everything else. There's a lot at play here. This is like Pete Rose, but in MMA, right? So for those who are trying to keep track of everything, basically Derek Minner, a fighter that is trained under James Krause, had a fight that ended in the first round. And it was very suspicious because a lot of betting action came in on Minner, came in on the fight, I should say, prior to, just like an hour or two before the fight. People betting the first round finish, the under, all these different things. So there was a spike in betting activity, and all indications, everything is sort of indicated that some information was leaked about Minner's injury, and you saw him throw some kicks, and he was obviously injured going into the fight. And it's nothing new. I mean, we've seen fighters go into fights all the time injured, but the amount of people betting on it, that's what raised a red flag here. So basically from that point on, the investigation was on. Krause is, like I said, under the microscope right now. James Krause had a betting service that he was providing free picks, and then also some that he was doing paid picks as well. So there was a bit of everything going on here. So, and Krause coaches Minner, so obviously there's some inside information being leaked, and that's a big no-no. You look at other sports, you can't bet. If you're a player, you can't bet on yourself or anything like that. So there's a lot of shady stuff going on. Right after this fight had happened, the UFC came out with a policy saying that fighters, managers, coaches cannot bet on themselves. And then we've just seen this rolling effect since. But the fact that we have a number of sports books, like I said, Alberta, Ontario, this is huge. I mean, I would imagine after I record this video, we're going to hear of other sports books potentially take away UFC wagering. And you just see how big wagering has been over the last couple of years. You see a lot of it getting legalized in Canadian markets across the world. So it's almost like we're taking a big step back with this whole situation here. So all we know right now is that James Krause, like I said, is the information that we have here. With what Ariel Helwani said, which is just that fighters cannot train under Krause. This sucks. You've got guys like Brandon Moreno who's got his title fight coming up. You've got Marcelo Rojo who's fighting this weekend. Thankfully, Marcelo is still allowed to compete. But you got like Jeff Molina's got a fight coming up. I'll just go through the list they have here. Brandon Moreno, Tim Elliott, Trey Ogden, Jeff Molina, David Onama, Manna Martinez, Mike Breeden, Joseph Holmes. Mazzani's not in the UFC, but you can put Miles Johns on that list. He recently joined the gym as well. So a ton of fighters are going to be impacted by this. Like I said, this is the biggest story right now in MMA, in my opinion. And I wanted to kind of condense it into one video here the best I can. I don't want to sit here and speculate. I don't know enough about the legal process of what's going to happen. This does remind me a lot of the whole situation in the NBA with Tim Donaghy, the referee who was not fixing games, but he had inside information on games. People were betting on them. This is a similar thing that's happening. And I think this goes beyond James Krause. Someone who's really been on the pulse of this entire thing is Luca Fury, someone I've been following for a while. He knows the betting side of things very well. He says James Krause may go down as the poster child for all of this, but the issue is far deeper rooted than just one coach or camp. I still highly doubt he gets hit with fight-fixing charges, but nothing else would surprise me as far as potential insider betting goes. There was also a quote in the ESPN article that they had, and ESPN's been on top of this since the beginning, talking about a coach that noticed a fighter was placing a bet, or a coach was placing a bet on a fighter that wasn't looking so good in the locker room. Like, it's just bad news. So the UFC obviously taking the right steps here. The UFC does not want to have people not being able to bet on their fights, so they're taking the necessary precautions to go there. As far as Derek Minner getting cut, he was going to get cut anyways. He had lost 3 in a row. I don't think that's a huge deal or shocker or anything like that. I feel for Minner. Speaking of Minner ahead of time, people who don't know, Minner had a concussion going into the fight, or ahead of the fight, I should say. It kept him out of action for a while. I'll actually just look up his record here. You remember, he's supposed to fight Damon Jackson in June, but he had a concussion issue, so he hadn't fought since December, so he needed to fight. I've heard some people say that Krause told Minner to take this fight. I don't know if that's true, but I know from speaking to Minner, he did need the money because he's been off for more than a year. So I think that, again, I don't want to speculate too much here, but just from speaking to Minner, I know he needed to take the fight because he obviously needed to get paid, and obviously the consequences are brutal. And again, we see fighters going into matchups injured all the time. We had TJ Dillashaw, probably more famously at UFC 280, clearly had an injured shoulder, could barely fight. So I mean, this is something that's been going on for a while, but again, I think this situation has really put a focus on how the UFC is going to manage betting and everything else going forward, because like I said, this is one of those sports where it has been a little loose on the rules. You've got people who have inside information. A lot of things can get kind of twisted here as far as the betting side of things. So this is where we're at right now. I have spoken to a few fighters at Glory. A lot of them are kind of in the dark and just finding this news out like the rest of us. I don't know where they're going to train. Like, there's not a lot of gyms in Missouri. Some people, like in the case of Miles Johns, like moved from Texas to train in Missouri at Krause's gym. So it's really difficult to sort of understand what's going to happen there with some of these fighters. Like I mentioned, I'll bring the list up again. So we'll see. But yeah, this is the biggest story. I had to talk about this again. The reason I didn't get too much into it before is because we didn't have any, hard facts. We knew that obviously Krause was being investigated. We knew that the fight, there was some fishiness going on, but I see a lot of speculation online. A lot of stuff has not been proven yet. So this is what we do know. Like I said, I'll just review it one more time. First, obviously, UFC has the first step was the UFC had told fighters they cannot bet on themselves. Same thing with managers and coaches. Then the New Jersey Commission says they were investigating Krause. Then we see these sports books, Ontario, Alberta. Maybe I'm missing something in between here, but you had Ontario, Alberta, and I'm sure more are going to not allow UFC wagers as well. And now we finally come today to see the fact that the UFC has decided to basically blackball anyone that's associated with James Krause, including anyone that trains there. So again, a lot to unpack here, but I did want to do a video on this just to give my thoughts. And, I guess the thing I hope for the most is that the fighters that are being affected by this, I hope they can, I hope they're taken care of. I hope it all works out for them, because they had nothing to do with this, at least from what I know. And as far as Krause, I've known Krause for a long time. One of the first interviews I've ever had on this YouTube channel was an interview I did with James Krause. Always been great to me. I always thought it was a bad idea, him selling picks and also coaching, because there's a really tough gray area there. Him giving betting advice, that's different. If he's going out there and, giving advice like a coach would or something, giving betting plays, I don't think there's necessarily an issue with that. In fact, the UFC has not banned fighters from, working with sports books and giving out picks. I think that's different, as opposed to a coach who might have some inside information is maybe selling picks. So there's a lot of stuff going on there, a lot of stuff to unpack. I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. What do you think is going to happen from this? To me, again, this is the story of the year. This is going to impact so many things. I just hope we get to a point where the UFC can work with these sports books and we can get betting back and ready to go. Because I don't know, just from my personal perspective here, I don't think I don't know. Betting's been around for a while. I've been involved in a lot of betting content for a long time. Of course, there's probably some shady stuff going on, but I think the majority of the people that are betting, I think it's with good intentions here. So I just hope we can get back to normal when it comes to all the betting content stuff and figuring it out there. So I want to know what you guys think in the comment section below. What do you think is going to happen? I suppose we can speculate a little bit, but again, as far as we know, as far as hard facts, all we know right now, James Krause suspended from the UFC. Fighters cannot train with them or do anything. Those following sports books have banned Krause. Outside of that, I've heard stuff about the FBI being involved, all these other things. I have not seen any outlets actually report that. So I don't want to get too much into speculation here because it is a sensitive topic, but I also think we can discuss this a little bit and maybe give me your thoughts as well. Follow me on Twitter and on Instagram at Lynch on Sports. Make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, youtube.com/Lynch on Sports. Hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. Sorry again, I'm a little sick here, but I had to do this. I had to talk about this because I know you guys are going to ask me about it. So hope you guys have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you guys soon.